And it matters for a ton of reasons, right? It's really, in insurance agencies, it is the metric by which your business is valued. And so at the end of the day, this is what your business is worth.
Welcome to the Insurance Refocused podcast, where we're highlighting real agent stories and how they are innovating to respond to the changes and challenges happening in the independent insurance industry. My name's Lindsay, and I can't wait to introduce you to my amazing co-host, who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace. Mom, how you doing today?
I am having a fantastic day, Lindsay. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Today, the day we're recording is officially the first day of summer, and it is the longest day of the year. So you know that makes for just a fantastic day. I love summer, and I actually really like sleep. So I don't know if the longest day of the year is actually a good thing for me, but it's cool, something to talk about.
Well, we're super happy to have you in here in Hilton Head with us on the longest day. That is like a treat for all of us, almost like Christmas, but not.
Well, we've got a very cool guest today to talk to. We're going to talk about some different things, some new things we haven't talked about yet. So I'm super excited. It is Andrew Wynn, one of the co-founders of Ascend. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here on the longest day of the year.
I know. Coolest thing, right?
Yeah. So admittedly, I did some Googling of you before we got on today because we've not met yet, and so I didn't really know a lot about you, but I found out that you've been part of some really cool projects. You have even been part of some like really cool insurtech projects like Shelter and even Ascend, which obviously we're a big fan of. So I guess my first question for you is, why insurance? Like, you started off with Instacart and in the Peace Corps, and even had a company that was acquired by Google. So how did you end up coming to insurance after those cool experiences?
Yeah, everyone has their how I got to insurance story, and I'm no exception. Insurance, my co-founder Praveen and I have worked together for the better part of a decade now. He's been a part of pretty much all of those experiences as well. And most recently, before Ascend, we were working at Hippo Insurance, the direct-to-consumer and now agent as well, agent distributed property homeowners insurtech carrier. And we sold our last company, Shelter, to Hippo. So that's we kind of got into insurance because of that. And I'll give a little bit more context of how we got there. Praveen and I worked at Instacart together, and we were joined when it was a really, really small company. It was 30 people in a house here in San Francisco, sort of true startup Silicon Valley fun. And I think we've been chasing that ever since, right? Those early fun days. And that company grew really quickly, right? It became this big sort of corporate, we joke, it went from the house to the high rise, right? And after a few years of that, we're like, hey, let's try to do our own thing. And so we started Shelter, which in many ways was kind of similar to Instacart. Instead of, it was a marketplace where you could use an app to get services to your house, right? Instead of groceries from grocery stores, it was home services. Think like plumbers, electricians, fixes, all that kind of stuff. And we knew that we didn't want to go and sort of run ads and acquire customers directly. So we're like, gosh, who might benefit from sort of white labeling this home services product and distributing it to their existing customer base? We tried real estate agents. Turns out they don't care. Once the house is sold, they're on to the next. We tried mortgage lenders. They're like, we have an entire portfolio. One house doesn't really make a difference, whether it's well maintained or not. But then we sort of stumbled into insurance and insurance carriers. We knew nothing about insurance at this point. Didn't know the difference between, an agent, an MGA, and a carrier. Very, very basic. And we realized that insurance companies obviously have a very vested interest in making sure your home is well maintained. And attritional losses, account for a huge amount of claims, specifically attritional interior water losses. So we partnered with a bunch of insurance companies to create a white labeled home services platform for them. Think, Hippo Home Care is how it lives on today. Now it's been bought by Hippo, but we partnered with a bunch of other folks, carriers as well, who had their own flavor of, XYZ home services by, Allstate or Chubb or Pure, whatever, whoever it may have been. And that's how we really learned about insurance. So that was our sort of first foot in the door.
If you're like me and many other small businesses across the country where hiring, training, and retaining employees is a challenge, Agency VA has a solution for you. Agency VA has over 1,000 VAs hired, managed, and trained in the Philippines, Latin America, and India. But did you also know they have 100 licensed agents here in the US that can help you manage your book? I use a VA who lives in the Philippines, and I absolutely love her. The process was simple. We had a consultation where they asked me my needs, goals, and concerns, and matched me with Allie, who has been an absolute game changer for me. Employing Allie through Agency VA has allowed me to focus on my business without worrying about HR concerns, turnover, and monitoring payroll. The best part is the Agency VA team was eager to help my company and also make sure that Allie is getting employee benefits, a competitive salary to help her live a better life in the Philippines. If this is something that you are struggling with inside your agency, please visit agencyva.com/insurance refocused and set up a time to talk to them about your hiring needs. Super brilliant to have that kind of marriage, right? Like, think about it. The homeowner needs all of that, but the insurance agent, insurance carrier, insurance broker truly wants you to be proactive in maintaining that asset and minimizing it. So super, super brilliant. I will tell you, Andrew, it's fascinating. The more I interview people that are entrepreneurs, the more our stories are always the same. Like my background is in tech startup, and it was solving a problem from a government contractor that basically saw the need to give people the ability to have their hands free, access data, be able to wear a computer in order to be able to access those schematics before we had the technology we had today. And I was employee number 7. It went to 49. We took it public. It was super exciting. And it's like you get this itch and you got to do it yourself at some point. So it is kind of fun though, right? To just figure out what that problem is and then build something yourself. So I admire that in many people that I get to meet. And it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really cool. And you get it. You have the bug. I think a lot of insurance agents as well do too, right? Like insurance agents are fundamentally entrepreneurs. And so to sort of the second part of your question of, not why insurance, but why insurance still maybe is
Yeah.
the question is, I really love working with other entrepreneurs. I really love working with people who feel the agency to solve their own problems, right? Who want to work on things, who want to sort of make everything a little bit better day by day and are willing to put in the work to do that. And so that's the why insurance now answer.
Yeah, and I would tell you the same thing for me. Like I came in because I had M&A background. I came in to help with a merger at the state level for one of the states that wanted to combine the Big I and PIA. So I came in thinking insurance is yikes, whatever. It's something, but it's not exciting. It's not whatever. But then I met the people, and I knew what they did in their communities, and I knew what and they're entrepreneurs. Like I love them. So I stayed and I became a student of the industry. And I, now today consult with them and surround myself with those people all day, every day. But I'd love to talk about one other thing in your history before we move to what you're doing now, which is the Peace Corps. You were doing some economic development during the Peace Corps. Tell me about what that experience was, and honestly, what you see happening economically right now. I'd love to get your take on that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's big questions.
I know.
Yeah, I was in. I'll try my best. I was in the Peace Corps right after college. I graduated I'm from Indiana, a small town in Indiana called Elkhart, Indiana. And I think another reason I really like insurance is to jump back one topic again, is it reminds me of, my friends' parents, the people I knew, people involved in the community. I live in a city now, so it's not always the same, and it's a reminder of sort of that part of my life that I really like, and kind of just like real America, right? And I think that's a huge reason I still like working with folks in the insurance industry. But I graduated. I went from Elkhart to Purdue, also in Indiana. Graduated from Purdue, and um, I kind of wanted just to do something different, right? And I wanted to get out. I wanted to sort of break the prevailing. Maybe this is the entrepreneur in me starting early. So much of time after school, you sort of watch this trend of people sort of. You can very clearly plot their course, right, based on where they're from, where they went to college, what they did in college, and what they're going to do next. And I was like, I want to do something different. And so I chose to go to the Peace Corps, which was about as different as you could get. Um, and I served as an economic development consultant in Senegal, which is the westernmost country in Africa, sort of the tip of Africa. I lived about 30 miles from the furthest west coast of Africa, so not that far, all things considered. Um, and worked with a bunch of different groups in the community. And the specific project I worked on was, again, with entrepreneurs, right? Was with people involved in mango production. And mangoes are delicious, right? Lots of people love mangoes. They also spoil incredibly quickly. So the mango crop comes all at once, they're ready. And then after a couple of days, all the good, they're starting to spoil already because it's hot. Mangoes inherently don't last that long. So we worked with a bunch of people who, might not have had jobs, or, were looking for ways to create additional income in a pretty impoverished country. And so we're like, wait, we have all of this abundant resource of mangoes that are going bad. People love mangoes, and we have labor and people who want to make something of that. So we created really two kinds of businesses. We created some mango juicing initiatives. So creating, juice, which obviously can be shelf stable and last a lot longer, as well as dried mangoes using solar dryers. So things that were able to be built easily in the community, which obviously helps people in the community also with the production. And we created dried mangoes. So now those mangoes, instead of being ruined, 50+% of mangoes in these places went to waste.
Oh,
We didn't
wow.
make a huge
Really?
dent in that. It's crazy. Yeah. So, in the US, we lose most of our food waste occurs at the home level, right? We throw stuff out of our fridge. In developing countries, it's often the opposite. There's not enough food making it to people's tables or houses, and it's lost at the production level. So we focused on trying to create a longer durability, more shelf stable product to get that food out longer. But ultimately, it was just business, right? People wanted to turn this input into value add and solve a problem in the community.
Hey guys, if you're looking to improve your bottom line, allow your team to operate efficiently, and really improve that customer retention, I believe you should check out Ascend. Ascend is the all-in-one insurance payment solution. They are focused on streamlining your invoicing, premium financing, accounting, and they'll even make your carrier payables for you. They are taking agency bill and making it as easy as direct bill. That is a game changer. They integrate with all of the major AMS players, and here's the best part. It's free. There is no subscription, no cost to you. They allow your customers to pay how they want. If you are interested in improving your efficiency, go visit ascend.com/insurance refocused and let them know that we sent you. Yeah, for sure. But I actually didn't realize there was that much waste. It makes perfect sense. And it's super interesting to me. It actually reminds me of some of the work that lots of people that we know are doing in order to help other countries. This happens to be solving hunger, there's other companies like Agency VA that's talking about trying to change the poverty that's there and provide opportunities. So it's pretty interesting. So, well, let's talk about agents. Like you and I, we all have this common focus of independent agents. What do you see impacting independent agents today? We've been in the marketplace for a while, right? Like I've been here 15 years. I don't know how long you've been in the marketplace, but long enough to see it evolve and change. What do you think the biggest things are, challenges and opportunities for independent agents today? What do you think those are?
It's a really good question, and I think these past 2 years have changed so much, right? In this sort of macroeconomic climate, which is uh, trickling down and impacting everybody in different ways. As it relates to insurance, I think we're seeing a couple of things. One is um, in terms of like the M&A that we were seeing from a lot of the big private equity backed aggregators. Um, I think some of the good times are over on that, right? The pace is really slowing down. People are doing more diligence. They are understanding the businesses that they're still buying, right? But they're at a slower pace. Um, they're understanding those businesses better, and I think there's a little bit of like, let's all take a breath going on there a second. After the past few years of just ripping acquisitions. People, aggregators buying hundreds and hundreds, thousands of agencies a year. It's a crazy amount of change and agencies and businesses to consume. Um, so I think that's one thing, um, which is, I think probably a good thing for the industry. The second thing that we're seeing is, um, despite insurance not directly being impacted by some of the negative macroeconomic trends like we're seeing obviously in tech, right? Tech has had huge amounts of layoffs, right? We're not seeing that in insurance in the same way. But what we are still seeing is a desire to tighten the belt a little bit, right? And like proactively, I mean, it makes sense, right? Like in insurance, people are always looking to mitigate risk. And so there's like, hey, if this is happening everywhere else, maybe we should also work on our efficiency a little bit, work on um, our how we run our business with a little bit of a tighter belt, not because we need to today, not because our business is hurting, especially relative to other businesses, but let's just be proactive about that. So we see really those two things. One is M&A slowing down and people really like uh, and when the M&A is happening, a lot more diligence, and the best businesses are the ones obviously with the highest EBITDA, right? The sort of demonstrable books of business that they can say. It's not just, hey, show me some commission statements and great, I'm going to buy your agency. That's number one, and then number two is just a general push toward efficiency inside of the business, and making sure that pretty much everyone is in some sort of high value add production focused or necessary support role, and there's not a lot of other um, superfluous stuff going on.
Yeah, I like to say that there's some things that aren't changing and there's some things that are absolutely changing. So, for instance, independent agents are are a great safe bet. There's a reason M&A's here. They're here because it's predictable, there's renewable income, there's a retention rate that's high on well-run agencies. None of that's changed. So there's still an interest. There's still going to be transactions, but without question, you're going to be really careful with your investments when the cost of money is so much higher than what you were 2 years ago. Because the reality is the stakes are higher, the margins are less, and therefore you're going to really pay attention. And I think any business, regardless if it's impacting you or not, you're being impacted by the change in employment community, like the employment environment in the last 2 to 3 years has shifted completely. And if you're not figuring out how to get efficient, utilize your people, create capacity on your team as part of a strategy there, I think you're missing the boat, because unfortunately it's not going to change. Like the workforce has changed. There's no two ways around that, right? But you said a magic word, and I got to tell you, I'm super envious that you put it on a hat before I did, because I speak this language all day, every day. Obviously, I want to focus on helping agents maximize their EBITDA all day long. And I love the hat. In fact, I intend to wear it on the beach and ask people that I run into, what do you think this means? And I'm going to do a whole video series on it because I think it's amazing. But anyway, I love that you guys are focused on something that agents should be thinking about, not your top line revenue, not what your new sales are. You should be thinking about what is my EBITDA, because if you're a business owner, that is where the value is for your agency, right? So I love the hat. We are thrilled. I will wear it with great pride, but I am a little envious that I didn't think of it before you guys did, just so you know.
Well, it's actually I'll give you the dirty little secret, which is I saw it on an Instagram ad, and our marketing person DM'd them and said, "Hey, can we put our logo on those?" And they said yes. So I didn't think of it either.
Oh
So
my
don't feel bad.
God.
That's awesome. I
That's
love
so
it.
funny. When we got the hats, I mean, we just got them recently. So when we got them, I was visiting my parents and they brought it back to the house. Um, and she's like, Lindsay, Ascend sent us new hats. Like, how awesome. And I'm like, but like I'm not a finance person at all. And I'm like, great, I'm gonna have to like memorize what this acronym means, memorize how to say it in order to actually wear it. And I actually like it's a very comfortable hat. So I do need to memorize what it says because I'm going to wear it. But would you tell us and tell the listeners who don't know what EBITDA means, what it means, and explain a little bit like why it's important?
Yeah. So I mean, EBITDA is, well, Carey, you want to take it? You're the EBITDA queen. You should take this
Nah,
one.
you got this, man. You got this. I got to tell you, this was our dinner conversation the other night as well. And
Well,
what Lindsay hasn't told you is, her boyfriend's here with her, and he has a finance degree, and he's like, I actually don't deal in this side of it, so I'm not 100% what amortization is. Like, I need you to tell me
Yeah.
what exactly is that. So anyway, but go ahead and take it because
Yeah.
I
EBITDA.
love it.
Sure. So EBITDA is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, and it matters for a ton of reasons, right? It's really, in insurance agencies, it is the metric by which your business is valued, and so at the end of the day, this is what your business is worth.
Yeah. And so everybody thinks about top line. If you talk to a lot of business owners, they'll think about what is my revenue. They might know that number. They'll definitely know their premium volume. I can tell you that, which, makes me a little crazy, but they'll know their revenue. But EBITDA is really what's left after all of the operating expenses. What's left in your business is profit, and what could a potential buyer expect it to cash flow from a value standpoint. That's really what we're talking about. So take your EBITDA times the multiple. That's also a thing that people will walk around and talk about, but nobody talks about the first part of the equation, which is EBITDA. They don't talk about that number. Everyone will say, what's the multiples? What's happening in the industry? What's the multiple? And a lot of people will talk premium. A lot of other people will talk revenue, but EBITDA gets lost. So I kind of love that you guys are shining a light on it because it's a number you should
That's what
know.
matters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me how
Well, I have a good example on
yeah,
that, a little
good.
bit of just kind of contextualizing it. So let's imagine, we'll use all the different numbers that people talk about, right? So let's imagine two separate $2 million revenue agencies. So assume that they're call it a $20 million premium agency, $2 million of revenue. One has 500K in EBITDA, and the other has 800K in EBITDA. So you know the former, the one with 500K, might get a buyout multiple at 7x, right? Because they're 25% EBITDA margin, which is okay, right? It's not amazing, and so as a result, it's not going to get an amazing multiple. Now, let's say the one that has 800K in EBITDA gets an 8x multiple. It's going to get a higher multiple because it's more efficient as a business. So, what does that equation actually turn into? Well, the one that has 500K in EBITDA that sells at a 7x is going to sell for $3.5 million, and the one with 800K at an 8x multiple is going to sell for $6.4 million for the same sized business when you look just at revenue. So it's really, really important distinction to as why it's a great example of why EBITDA matters so much.
The other thing I'd add to that is EBITDA is something that the agency owner controls. Your decisions on how you run your business directly impact what your EBITDA is. So your decisions on staffing, your decisions on tech, your decisions on marketing, your decisions on your location, whether or not you have a location, all those decisions, who you partner with, what carriers, like all of that impacts it. So it's really in your control. Now there's things you have to do, but again, because it just baffles me a little bit, and I get it, it's an accounting term. I can't wait to do the video on it to see what people think it means, but I love it. So here's what I would love to know. There's a lot of things happening in our industry to help agents navigate how to make good decisions, how to scale, how to grow, how to do all kinds of things. And we already talked about creating capacity on your staff, all that. How do you think Ascend fits in that whole picture of impacting an agency's ability to maximize their EBITDA?
Yeah. So the sort of fundamental equation or thing the way we think about EBITDA is every dollar of revenue not accompanied by an additional expense and every dollar of expense eliminated will over a 12-month period will add to your EBITDA, right? And so we're like, well, what are those things? How are ways that we can generate revenue without adding expense, and how are ways that we can eliminate existing expenses? That's how we think about it. Those are the buckets we target because we know that those impact EBITDA, which again impacts obviously the valuation of the business. And so there's a couple ways we do that. On the the second part around eliminating existing expenses, a lot of the status quo around billing in insurance is expensive. It is a necessary evil, right? And specifically agency billing, right? Where as we go into this, the market hardens, there's a lot more people placing with E&S, there's a lot more agency bill that comes at a very real cost to an agency in terms of labor, in terms of opportunity cost. It's often a reason why people prefer direct bill. They might say, gosh, I don't care if I don't get my, commission for a month or so because I just can't take on this work. So Ascend automates a huge amount of that process. So with Ascend, we automate the account receivable, right? The cash collection or the payment from the insured, whether that's paid in full, agency installments, premium finance, whatever it is. You're not doing any extra work to offer, to collect the payment. And then once the payment has been received by the agency through Ascend, we then automate the back half of it, which means we handle the payables to the carrier, the splitting out of the commission into your operating account, and then, in cases where we have AMS integrations, ledgering that into your AMS and or ledger if that's separate. And so those are just two huge areas of cost savings that exist today, right? So I'll pause there and see, does that answer one of those questions?
100%. Yeah, of course it does. I think for some though, it's still like nebulous, right, Linz? Like I think for the average person, we don't think in those financial terms, right? And I don't know. I think that we should probably figure out how to put that in a term that the average agency would understand. So maybe you could give us an example of one of your best agency stories of how they've shifted and utilize this to drive results inside their agency. Is that
Yeah,
something that you okay?
sure. Yeah. There's an agency that's actually there's a case study coming out. Um, I think later this week, or I guess it depends on when we release this, but this podcast is released. But Three Arbor is an agency based in Alabama. Um, they're a pretty new agency, so like a lot of folks are there. They have a lot of experience in insurance. They came from larger agencies. They have two offices, Alabama and Georgia. Are growing pretty quickly, but they were building a lot of the sort of agency infrastructure from the ground up. And they found Ascend maybe about a year ago, and have used Ascend to essentially automate their financial and accounting operations, like dealing with collections, dealing with premium financing, handling carrier payables, reconciling those things into their books. And they just never had to hire, for some of those roles. So like they have fewer account managers than, their revenue per account manager is pretty high because let's say they do a lot of E&S, right? Let's say in a traditional sense, maybe 25% of that account manager's time might have been spent doing things like chasing customers for payments or creating premium finance agreements or, dealing with notices of cancellation and things like that. All of that is being automated. And conversely, they'd never hired a sort of, they never had to hire any sort of transactional accounting person, right? Or bookkeeping operations type person, the kind of person who, literally goes into the bank account, looks at the payments coming in, moves, the 10% out of this one into the operating account, ledgers that, and then pays the carrier. We do all that for them. So they didn't have to go through and, cut a bunch of jobs or anything like that, but they never had to hire for that. So that's an example of how they were able to do it. And the case study coming out with them, you'll see the sort of specific numbers on their EBITDA improvements, time saved, things like that. So if you're interested in that, I'm sure we can link it afterward.
Oh, heck yeah. Actually, I think one of the ways that you and Agency Focus and Ascend even got linked up was there was Chris was in the audience when I was actually talking about this very topic and the impact. Not only that, but the accuracy of the accounting records and staying in trust and all of the complexities that come with that as you have people working that may or may not understand the different influx of money and how it needs to be accounted for differently, especially when there's turnover. Like there's something to, there's a lot of agencies that decide to outsource their accounting, and being able to understand what trust accounting is and why you need to account for it differently isn't something that the average accountant knows if they've not worked with an organization that needs it. So it really does solve a capacity problem, an accuracy problem, and actually an area that could be a pretty bad situation when you go to sell if you've not stayed in trust and you have exposure there. Like that's not a good thing. So it's super interesting to me. Tell me about the
Yeah, I
tech.
mean, I've heard of businesses that have lost, uh, you know, enterprise value in diligence upon discovering AR accounting trust issues, and that actually reduced their purchase price. So
Oh, for
it is
sure.
very real.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely, it does. I mean, listen, anytime you find risk in a deal, you absolutely will see it impact the price. And and it's hidden risk because it all looks fine until you dig in and it doesn't actually look fine. I mean, I've seen the same thing of an E&O claim that wasn't uncovered. Like there's all kinds of things, right? So talk to me about the technology around this and what that looks like. And how it integrates. Like, what does that feel like inside an agency? Because I really don't know.
Yeah, totally. It's a really good question. Again, our goal is to reduce the sort of work being done to manage these things. The other thing we try to do also, before I get to that, just to go back one question and talk about, you know, EBIT is obviously decreasing costs and increasing revenue. Um, the big thing that we've seen that we didn't really expect as much is because folks like account managers, like producers, are spending less time dealing with these critical but not revenue generating activities, um, that comes at an opportunity cost. So by virtue of being able to spend more time focused on renewals, supporting new business, we've actually seen folks actually increase their revenue as well. So that's the other sort of benefit of that. But to answer your question on um, the tech is built to integrate within your existing workflows and systems. We don't want you to have to learn something new. We don't want you to have multiple different tools you're using. We want to centralize everything so that you can, again, so you being the person inside an agency can stay really focused. So the way it typically works is we integrate with an agency management system to collect all of the information we need to essentially create a digital invoice. And then we host that invoice on a website that is branded to you. It looks exactly like your agency. The insured thinks they're interacting. They're not, hey, what's this weird company that you sent me that I have to log in with a strange account or anything like that. It's hosted and branded to you. It's even to your colors. The insured then chooses how they want to pay. Again, credit card, wire, bank transfer, premium finance. It doesn't really matter. They see the policies that they're purchasing, all that kind of stuff. And then once they pay, we receive that payment. We mark it as paid. We we email the insured all the receipts, invoices, all that kind of stuff. Again, co-branded to you. We also email and create notifications for the account manager or producer on the account. And then once the payment clears, we split out, we create a payable essentially to the billing company, to the wholesaler, carrier, or market. And we also then split out that commission into your operating account. The payable to the carrier can be reviewed, right? It's sort of human in the loop automation. So it's all teed up, ready to go. You can set it to go automatically if you want, or you can take a look at it before. Sometimes this happens if you are, invoicing on or billing on the quote rather than the invoice, and it changes once you get the invoice. So you have the opportunity to update that if you need. And then once those payments go out to the operating account for commission and the carrier for the premium, we write that back into your AMS and mark those policies as paid, those cash receipts as received, and those payables as paid to the carriers.
Yeah, it's pretty
It's
pretty slick, right? Yeah, totally pretty comprehensive process. That's awesome.
The other thing just to mention, because security is obviously really important, and E&O is obviously something to think about, is once those funds come in, right? Once the insured pays, that's not money in Ascend's bank account, right? We're not just putting that into to your point around, trust being really important. We're not just putting that into our bank account and saying it. We're actually creating programmatically controlled trust accounts. So it goes into your own trust account that you can direct us to control programmatically, which is what we do based on those inputs that you're giving us. But it's always in trust. It's always in a bank account owned by the agency, not commingled or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, Andrew, if you know this. I've actually shared it with a couple people on your team, but I had the opportunity as a customer to engage with Ascend. So my agent uses Ascend, and it's kind of funny. First of all, I love my agent. I absolutely adore him. He's one of the best people on the planet. He treats my family like family, and I absolutely love him. But my biggest fear is I'm going to be that client. Like I'm going to forget to pay one of my policies. So, my insurance situation has definitely evolved over time. So, I have multiple children. We had a vacation home at a period of time. I started a business. We now have employees. Like my insurance complexity continues to get, a little bit more complex. And I'm terrified that I'm going to forget to make one of these payments because I've engaged with his agency multiple times, but there's multiple transactions. For the first time ever last year, Ascend put all of that in a nice, neat little package, and I paid once, and I didn't have this anxiety that a person that I admire, love, and trust more than anyone on the planet didn't have to make a collection call to me. I was very relieved. So I don't know if that's probably not in your marketing materials, but I got to tell you, I was pretty damn happy about that. So yeah.
Oh, I'm good. I'm sure the agent was too. The last thing they probably wanted to do was call you for a collection call.
Right, exactly. And he laughed when I told him that, but I was like, listen, it's been a relief. Like but it was super simple and easy. And it actually did not look like it was something other than coming from his agency. So, because that's the other thing from a security standpoint, if I get random things that I don't understand, I'm not opening them. Like nobody should open them. So super helpful that it was branded to him and made me have some peace of mind that I'm not, unknowingly becoming a collection call when I don't want to be that collection call. So anyway, yeah.
Totally. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. A little levity in the world, right?
Yeah.
So Andrew, what's next at Ascend? What's on the horizon for you guys?
Yeah. So, we're very focused on what we're doing. We're trying to continue to make the business efficiency by virtue of automating these non-revenue generating but critical tasks more common with independent agents. We want to really continue to focus on and help agents of all sizes. And one of the other ways that we're starting to do that is by working also with brokers and carriers, right? So for an agent, it's sort of two-part, which is, gosh, I have to collect the money from the insured, but then sometimes wholesalers might not apply a payment. It doesn't matter if you send them a check, an ACH, a wire, and then you're calling them. So that's the next thing we're working on, is really working with those other sort of billing companies so that they can accept the payment more efficiently, despite how well we're sending it to them. It's two parts. So we're working with them on accepting and applying that, and really just stitching together all of these pieces that have been completely separate. So how the payment is being collected from the insured, how the payment is being sent from the retailer to the wholesaler or MGA, how the MGA or wholesaler is paying the carrier, so on and so forth. Trying to connect all of those so that it's a seamless process, not all of these different breakages that exist and cause this friction and waste of time throughout the industry. So those are the kinds of things we're working on.
That's awesome. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We appreciate your support. We love what you're doing. I absolutely love that you're starting the conversation that people pay attention to EBITDA. I've been saying that for a long time. In fact, people make fun of me and say that if they sit next to me on an airplane, that I might say that word more times than you can count, which I don't, by the way. But I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, and how you are also championing that conversation in the industry. If people wanted to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Andrew Wynn, WYNN. My email is andrew@useascend.com. I'm sure we can put some stuff in the show notes too. And our website is www.useascend.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being our guest.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me, and let's keep banging the EBITDA drum together.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how Agency Focus can help you grow your agency? Head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.